Plug you in here.
Got it.
As soon as that's done.
Okay, Mrs. Jason.
Are we good? Great. Welcome to our guests. It's so nice to come back from executive session and see so many smiling faces. So thanks for being here today. We'll get to you in a little bit. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Next is the minutes of our previous meeting. Can I have a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Next is communication. Do we have any communications to talk about? Okay, let's move on. Next is our first open session. I will read it. As per board policy 1512, we hold 2 open sessions at each meeting. This first session is limited to comments on agenda items for tonight's meeting. The board welcomes attendance and participation by district residents, people having business within the boundaries of the school district, and people who do business with the Board of Education. Speakers must be at least 16 years of age and will be limited to 3 minutes. Please preface your comments with your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate. Non-district residents must include the name of their business or how they do business with the Board of Education. All speakers in this open session, and we have 2, must state which agenda item they are speaking on. Any takers? All right. Not seeing any. This takes us to unfinished business, and we have none. Next is our superintendent report.
Thank you, Mrs. Jason. Obviously, we are very excited to have our guests here tonight and from representing student government with Mrs. Bruce, and they are on. So if you guys are ready to present, and just let me know. I have your presentation and I can click right through it. So whenever you're good to go. And
Okay. So I agreed to kick the presentation off as a way of being a link between the school board and the members of student government. So I'll be taking the stand for a moment.
Taking the stand. You make it sound like you're-
He's taking us.
So, hello to everybody. It's very good to finally get our school board and our members of student government together in the same room to truly form a connection and create a stronger connection between the adults and the kids here at Sweet Home. I think it's very important that we have this opportunity to show what we are capable of and what we have been working on and what we've accomplished in student government throughout the years. Could you hit the next slide, please? So the purpose of the Sweet Home Student Government Association is to be the main representative body of our students. Everybody who is here, I believe, is either an elected member or a member of student government who was appointed by me. We do have students who weren't necessarily elected, but decide to participate in student government and provide feedback, help out student government in its goals, simply because we think the more the merrier. As long as kids want to help out and make a change in Sweet Home, we'll let them. The Sweet Home Student Government Association is involved in many facets of the school's organizational structure. Its main function is to provide the student body with an authentic voice in shaping the school's climate, culture, and overall experience. I believe that we've been able to do this throughout the years. I know that many of our students come up to us whenever they have an issue or whenever they come up with a good idea, good fun idea as to what we could do in the school. So I feel like this is a very good connection and a good way to represent our students through our organization. Sweet Home Student Government Association meets multiple times per week and as necessary to carry out its function, such as whenever we need extra time to maybe plan an event or get a general idea of what a committee would want to present at our next general meeting. The individual elected as the president of the Sweet Home Student Government also serves as the student representative on the Sweet Home Central School District Board of Education, which you all knew. And that's this slide. Okay, can you go to the next slide? Our goal is to create a way for all kids' voices to be heard and help all the students at Sweet Home feel connected to our school. We believe that our strong relationships and partnerships, not just with each other, the members of student government and our constituents, the Sweet Home students here at Sweet Home, but also connections and partnerships with staff members and, of course, the school board, will help improve end of the year academic outcomes as well as morale within Sweet Home. We also believe that by giving students a voice, it will allow us to reinforce the health of the students and well-being throughout the school year. Okay, I'm now going to pass this off to Hunter Tryloff, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Hunter Tryloff. I am a sophomore senator, and I am the chairman of the Senate Student Safety Committee. Currently, our student government is organized into 3 different branches, those being the executive, legislative, and judicial. The executive branch consists of our president and vice president. Our president, in addition to being the ex officio member of the Board of Education, is responsible for approving or vetoing all legislation passed by the Senate. They are responsible for meeting with our administration teams, our student government advisor, and our constituents as needed. Our vice president is responsible for presiding over all sessions of the Senate. They're responsible for reviewing all legislation before it becomes available to vote on. Yeah. Our legislative branch is consisting of a total of 22 senators from all 4 grade levels. 6 senators are allocated to the underclassmen, while 5 are allocated to each upperclassmen grade level. They are responsible for writing and drafting and passing all legislation on school-wide policies in the form of referendums or bills. Yeah. Our judicial branch has yet to be formed. We are hoping within the next few weeks to meet with our high school administration team on how we can proceed with this branch. We know that it could deal with some confidential information, so we want to make sure there's no conflicts of interest there. There is a bill being drafted by myself into the Senate, but before we proceed, we would like the opinion of our administration teams, of course. Once all students are elected to our student government, or as they participate, they are required to meet certain obligations, those being that our Senate and Congress meet bi-weekly, whereas our committees meet regularly throughout the school day or as needed for matters of more importance. Our executives meet not only with Mrs. Bruce daily, but members of our high school administration, the board, and other parties involved in decisions. Because of the pandemic, we haven't been allowed to proceed with as many field trips that we would have liked to, or community events. We do hope, however, for this year for later in the year to engage in more school-wide events, and we have some planned later in the presentation as well. Our next speaker will be Fatima Hassan.
Hi, I'm a junior. My name is Fatima Hassan, and I'm the chairman of the Academic and Student Life Committee. Our cabinet members and academic committees are the Academic and Student Life, and athletic committees, which is run by John Wazitsky. Diversity and inclusion is run by Afifa Roja. Environmental and action is ran by Rosalie Skovalevsky. Food and nutrition is run by Lexi Herman. Music and art is run by C at Home. Student safety is run by Hunter Triloff, and technology is run by Daniel Freed and Nigel. The accomplishments from the year 2018 till 2020, we had annual winter dance and pep rallies, which we want to continue this year, hopefully, maybe the pep rallies only. Eco-friendly lunch trays and breakfast options and lunch options. Last
Oops, I'm sorry.
Last year, we had members of the student government reopening task force. We had issued academic surveys and assessed impacts on student learning and outcomes. Delegates were members of the sport reopening task force, district technology committees, Earth Week celebration, Chili Billy ice cream truck, and academic peer tutoring. We started, you can go to the next slide. The academic committee, we started it last year, but we're continuing on this year. We opened it with the AAC room. We had a lot of students want to tutor, so they went to the AAC room, and a lot of students came and then needed help, and then they asked for one-on-one tutoring. And we started it this week, and we already have so many kids show up wanting to get help, and then students that wanted to help out. We started the kindness campaign. It was the student life committee. We wrote 1,000 letters to all the students in the school, and we handed out candies with them, and it made like everyone happy. I had so many students come to me, and then they were like, "Oh, this is so nice. You guys should do it more often." And it was just like really like nice things to do because everyone was, happy. And some people even saved it in their phone cases. That was really nice. And our next speaker is Musab.
Hi, everyone. I'm Musab Abrar, and I'm a junior, and I'm the vice president of the Student Government Association. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to move up there because I cannot see and I have glasses. So, as you guys have heard, student government has accomplished a lot over the years, but I'm really proud to say that this year has been our most progressive year to date. We accomplished a Halloween Spirit Week where we've had the most participation that we've seen in years. Many students have come in dressed as the different days, and we're just really proud to say that we fostered a comfortable, very fun environment during that week. We had a successful costume contest to end off the week where students came dressed in their favorite characters or that nature, and security guards handed out golden tickets where students who received golden tickets would then come to this lobby and we'd have a selection process and we chose cards. We also had a holiday Spirit Week, which was right before our winter break, and it was very similar to the Halloween Spirit Week, but we were lucky to have another immense turnout that really boosted well. Moving on from events, we had our Farm to School grant, which was a big step forward. New York State was offering a $100,000 grant to different districts for garden, not for a garden, but for money to get food from local farms. And we were able to bring that up with some board members such as Feldman and Estrie, and very productive in that area. From that, we had halal food served in the cafeteria for the first time on January 12th, 2022. That was a really big moment for not only the Sweet Home District, but for the Muslim students. As many of you may know, Sweet Home has a lot of Muslim students. Being a Muslim myself, I know that I haven't been able to see my friends ever in school. So being able to sit down next to my friends enjoy a burger next to them, that was something really special to me, and I know a lot of students felt that way too. So we'd like to thank Mrs. Sajak for helping get that started. As Fatima Hassan stated, we established the academic peer tutoring in collaboration with the A. A lot of students needed help, and a lot of students, might not be able to learn as well from their teachers as they do from other students. So that's been really successful so far. A lot of people are on the district technology committee and student-led tech help center, which our chairs of the technology committee are on that. Daniel Freed. We established a student leadership team, very McGooey, between multiple student groups. So we all know that student government is the governing body of Sweet Home's student body, but we wanted to expand the idea of being a leader and having leadership qualities to the student body to show that you don't actually have to be only part of one group. And so we established the student leadership, incorporates not only student government, but many different people from the student body. We're glad to see that more and more people are starting to join that and starting to be interested in different initiatives. They're starting to see that with our initiatives that student government has taken on, they're starting to see that students can make a difference in school. Adults like you guys are listening to what we have to say. As a part of student leadership, as a part of the SLT's Wellness Wednesday, this was one of our mental health initiatives. A lot of students feel that we're really rushed throughout the week. There's a lot of tests, a lot of homework, and overall, we're just really stressed throughout the week. And we know that teachers, it can be stressful for them too, if they have to make lessons. And so we decided that, it would be really nice if we all had a breather. And so every Wednesday, we call it the Panther Pause Wellness Wednesdays. Have a student from the SLT group go to the PA system, and we have a wellness activity where either deep breaths or stretches. And the first few weeks, while it was slow, we've seen a growing amount of participation in that. And a lot of people have said that it is effective for them, and that's something that we really like to hear. We've also been able to expand that to people outside of the SLT, so more and more students just roaming in the halls. We asked them, hey, do you want to do this? And they've been more than responsive to that question. Another initiative that SLT has been doing was pushing into freshman and sophomore study halls for academic help, conquer the obstacle of adjusting to high school and the community. We know that as freshmen in high school, it's really difficult to adjust to the environment that high school can. And we also understand that with COVID, adjusting has been even harder for these freshmen and these sophomores who are sophomores, but they didn't have a real freshman year to adjust to the high school. So we, as upperclassmen, wanted to give them a way to ease into the high school life. We wanted to give them an outlet to go to for help, for just making bonds between upperclassmen and underclassmen, because something that we pride ourselves in at student government is our school's motto, every student, one student. And in order to do that, we need to create those bonds between upperclassmen and underclassmen. This is one step towards doing that, giving them advice, telling them our experience of what we as upperclassmen when we were kind of help them move past the obstacles that we had to push past. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Our chair of athletics, Jonathan Kaczynski, collaborated with Mr. Perry for the reinstallment of the microwave in the senior lounge and the return of vending. A lot of students have talked about wanting a microwave because, by the time we get to lunch, our food is not really cold if we bring it from school. And so a lot of students have talked about bringing a microwave, and it's a small win, but it boosted a lot. There was a lot of response to it. A lot of people were excited to see it back, and it was just really good. Collaborated with Ms. Doria on customizing sports apparel, and I'd like to bring up John from athletics too.
Thank you, Musab, and thank you everybody else for listening to us tonight. My name is John Gazinski, and I am the athletic chairman. As Musab has mentioned, me and my committee and I have worked with Ms. Doria with customized sports apparel. a few of the students had approached me and other student government members about the need for customized sports apparel. They wanted to customize the backs of varsity jerseys. That was just a goal that was too far reaching for us to actually accomplish that. But we were able to compromise and get customized sports apparel with the names on the backs. So instead of it just saying Sweet Home, you could spend a couple extra dollars and get your name on the back. We thought that that was a big win. We like to see ourselves as a community, but it's also important to, recognize individuals and to have their names on the back. I think that that was really cool. It's also really nice that people feel comfortable approaching the student government and bringing up issues, and that it is something that we can get done. And I look forward to continuing to get that done. And I thank you for listening to us. Thank you.
So another big thing that we've been working on is the farm to school grants. Branching off of that, we were thinking about having a school garden, and we've been making plans for that and trying to get that in the works. And it turns out that Willow Ridge actually has a similar idea, and they got a grant from the American Heart Association. They're trying to get the same thing that we're trying to get. So we thought, what better way to kind of show what Sweet Home is all about than to together in elementary school and high school. So I'd like to bring up Rosalie Kovaleski, our chairwoman of environmental action, to speak more.
Hi, I'm Rosalie Kovaleski. I am the chair of the Environmental Action Committee. So I believe this garden, in the beginning, I was thinking when I ran for VP that we needed a garden to bring us together as a community all over of the Sweet Home District. And I was thinking we can start off with, well, let me start from the beginning. So the garden, I believe that everyone, like gardens just bring people together. I've known this because I work at a food pantry, and everyone who volunteers there, I see them all connect at the garden and help out. And I feel like it's a great opportunity for all of us to be part of. So the garden, I believe the garden, we should start off with having it in the courtyard, because I feel like that open space we haven't used for a very long time, and we always say to like keep chairs out there, but we haven't been using it, and I feel like it's a great space to put something there. And this year I want to start planning the garden, so next year we can start building it and getting the community together. So I was thinking, we have so many grant opportunities that we can apply for this next year in the beginning of the year and start going on with working with Willow Ridge. They said they would love to work with us. I'm pretty sure people in the Sweet Home community, like the PTA, science teachers, clubs would love to work with us as well. And we have, and student government, of course, would love to work with us. I'm just like really excited to get this started, because I just can imagine kids coming in, maybe after school can be like Keep Up, where kids can join a club and they can come in and learn how to work around the garden, or even for science classes, they can come in and maybe start growing something. I just think everyone can really get something out of this opportunity. Thank you.
Building off of what she said, as she said, gardens bring our community together, and building off of that, a lot of students have expressed interest in modifying the school lunch, and in order to do that, we understand that there's a lot of issues that come into like you need to have certain things in your lunch. We understand that there are a lot of state restrictions. And so we thought of a good way to give students a feeling of control over what they're putting into their bodies is making the garden produce that we'd be able to. Obviously, that's a lot of planning and a lot of steps that we're in the future, but kind of our idea so far. And I'd also like to thank Haley Starr, who's our center, I'd like to thank her as well, because she had a large part in bringing this idea up. And so thank you.
Where's Haley? Good job.
So moving on. Obviously, COVID has affected our social. Haven't been able to interact with one another the way that we did in years previous. On all of us. And it's made students restless for social. That with COVID, pep rallies, a lot of things that we might normally do. And so we were thinking about maybe possibly having a spring event for the students. A lot of students have reached out to us about a possible community day where students from the high school would go out into the community, acts of community service. That way we'd be benefiting while also getting themselves. A field day where, again, establishing those bonds between upperclassmen and underclassmen, we're thinking about having cohort and competition, trying to foster that environment of not only being comfortable with the people around you, but having fun with them. Because you can sit next to someone in a desk all day long and still not know their name. That is a great way to. A lot of people express interest in a spring dance, which at some point. Same goes with the pep rally. A lot of people, for the upperclassmen that are in Sweet Home now, we all remember when there were pep rallies, and we know how much fun they were, and we know how excited we got when we had them. And so we were thinking about possibly holding an outdoor one in the spring on the turf. Details of that are still in discussion, but we hope to have a plan for that soon. Also, a lot of student government members have are also participating in the district diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when student government was founded back in 2018, we had all of the different committees, and one of our committees was diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when Bayless and Mr. Genestri came to us with the opportunity to founded district DEI committee, we were really excited and glad when they off student government to that committee. So not only is it taking ideas from board members and adults in the district, now students are finally getting say some not only issues but just general ideas in this week. That's something that we're really happy to see. We're thinking about having a multicultural week, and I think that is our chairwoman, Oha, who is present today, but cooperating with her is Fatima Sam.
So for Culture Day, we have a lot of people from different cultures and would love to like wear their culture clothes and talk about their food and what they do. And in November, we had a Culture Day and like everyone dressed up and everyone were asking us if we can bring like extra headscarves and stuff to share with them. And they've been asking if we could, if we're doing one soon. So we're thinking of doing one from March to April. We're still planning that, but we're gonna do a bunch of events like with wear our culture clothes, and also we might do like a scavenger hunt, and so everyone can know like geography and then know backgrounds about people and stuff. So we're gonna decorate the school maybe. And also we're gonna Afifa wanted to plan to draw a map and put it on the glass door in foyer and have people put where they're from if they know on the map, so it like shows where everyone is from. And that's it for now.
In addition to the peer tutoring program that Fatima talked about earlier within the high school, we've also been in discussion with Mr. Ryan to try to expand that to our Maple Muir Elementary. A lot of students there need help as well because, I mean, if it's hard for us, it has to be hard for them. Just learning, not English, but just learning like, what it's like to be in school. So, having the high school students go to these elements, try to help them out. not only try to help them out. As we mentioned earlier, we pushed freshman study halls, and that's been going well. Our first week of that was last week. It's been a bit awkward because obviously going into freshman study halls means up at first, but we hope that will warm up to them. We also were organizing a school bulletin board and a project. So the school bulletin board, a lot of students don't necessarily have, internet at home, don't necessarily have social media. And so they're not able to find out about a lot of different things that are going on in the school, such as events, just updates from student government. And so we were thinking about having a school bulletin board where these events would be posted up to date regardless of the situation. And the Motivational Mirror Project was on that bulletin board and around the school, we have mirrors. This is actually an idea that came out of the SLT. Those mirrors, obviously, the mirror you can see. Knows that, obviously. But like above the mirror, there would be motivational questions or quotes like, what's going to be your story? What are you going to do? What's going to be your impact on the world? And a lot of problems that I've heard from students and a lot of problems that I faced myself with COVID was finding motivation to, after a while, it can get a bit tiring with tests and homework. A lot of students. So we're thinking that this, while it is a small change, it would get students thinking about, what is going to be my legacy. We want students to start thinking about that word, legacy. You're gonna leave the blessing behind in the world, but you're not gonna leave. We want students to think about that from them. The senior handprints and tiles, low tire availability, and expanding SLT. I'm going to talking us up.
Oh, hi again. The senior handprints and tiles, we wanted, since like we have the senior pictures, but like they put it after the seniors leave, so they don't even see the picture. But we wanted this as something like they do together before they leave off, because some of them might not even see each other again. But like handprints above the lockers, there's like an area. They can put their handprints, their names, and then like the year they graduated. And then also we were thinking tiles. In the foyer, there's a lot of tiles. Take one down and like paint on it or draw something and then just leave it there. And it'll be yours. And then when you come in, if you come in again, you can just say, oh, that's mine. And school attires. So we're working on a school concept, like a stand in school. Like we had them, but we want to bring them back. But we want to like sell school attires in them. So like if you want to go to a basketball game and then you don't have something to wear, you can just like buy one real quick. And expanding SLT, we want to open it up for like everyone, because leaders aren't just the people who are chosen. Everyone is a leader. And we don't want people to just follow that group. We want everyone to be the person to lead themselves. So
Expanding the district DEI's committee's mission. So one of the things that we're working on in our district, trying to figure out our mission and vision statement. We want to have a clear goal set, and we want to be able to let that be our guideline for the work. And participating in those meetings, I've seen a lot. I've noticed the very comfortable environment that district, that committee fosters. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank Ms. Willis and Mr. allowing me to be a part of that. So we'd like to bring those ideas to student government. We know that a lot of students may not feel very comfortable sharing their ideas. A lot of students may think that their ideas are not impossible. We want to let them know that no idea is gonna be right. If you have an idea, I'd like you to be able to tell it to us because that's how many things can actually talk. Student greeters, that's something that we talked about in our SLT meetings. So there are certain teachers throughout the building that when you go to them and when you look at them, you're like, your day lightens up. Happy around them, you're really comfortable around them. And so in our meeting, we talked about the different teachers that we thought met this thing. Not to say that teachers, but just certain teachers are more welcoming than others. And so we noticed that what they do is that they greet us. They treat us less as teacher student, more as human. And that's something that really affects us in a positive way and affects our day. And it kind of really helps us get into active in our school environment. And so we were thinking that if we can expand that to the student body, that would be great too. When school starts and they coming up in the buses, everybody's tired, everybody doesn't necessarily school at that moment. And so we were thinking that student graders would just say, good morning, hello, how are you? Things like that, just to kind of get into that mode of being in. You start your day off right, essentially. We'd also like to expand our establishing bonds between upperclassmen and underclassmen. We'd like to expand that to teachers. As I mentioned earlier, there are certain teachers that we're more comfortable with, and we'd like to extend that number to make that environment of being comfortable. We want teachers to be comfortable around us and more like be a little bit looser in certain areas, and we want students to understand that there is responsibility that you have as a student that your teacher has to do. Both groups cooperate in that the most efficient way. Hope to find that. Reestablishment of the new student breakfast. So some of you guys may know, a lot of you probably don't. I was a new student my freshman year. For that, and coming into home as a new student, especially in high school, was really good. Because not only was I in a new school, not only was I just starting high school, but also Sweet Home students have been friends. I come from New York City. Maybe one person, maybe, but that's not something that's very. So trying to make friends in this area where everybody's already friends, that can pose a difficult challenge to students. And so we'd like to eliminate that feeling. We don't want anyone to feel excluded in our district. And as a part of that, we were thinking about having a new student breakfast. My freshman year, Mr. Capelli and a lot of student ambassadors handed out different we all gathered in the student lounge and we had breakfast, like that nature, icebreakers and stuff like that. People who asked at them got gift cards, and it was a really nice way to not only meet you like yourself, but also kind of assimilate to school and try to feel like more comfortable around the different people. That's something that we hope to start. It might be a bit too late this year, because we're already halfway into the year, but hopefully from next year, that's something that starting with the Willow Ridge PTO, those of you already discussed that. And like for the last two.
She's busy.
Hi. For opening courtyards, we have the courtyards, but we never use them. Even for mask breaks, we were supposed to use them, but like no one really used them. And I want to like maybe start opening them for the spring. I know a lot of students would love to like work on them and like clean them up and stuff. And then we can just hang out in the courtyards, like during study halls, because they're like closed off, so you can't really do anything, like, and bringing Ramadan and Eid culture to the school in an all-exclusive way. sorry, an exclusive way. So like we have a lot of Muslim students, and then it's like Ramadan is a whole month of fasting, and not many students really know about it. And then sometimes like, because we do it all in school, sometimes it could be like tiring and lonely, and it's like, oh, you know. So we want to maybe like lighten up, bring up like lights or like decorations to the school, and then maybe bring it to the school and then like educate other students about it. And then Eid is like a holiday for us. We want to like maybe celebrate with everyone here, so it's not just for us, but like open it up for everyone, because I know a lot of Sweet Home students are friends with Muslim students, so just like, you know, open it up and yeah.
Okay. So I'm doing the first four of the blue. The blue.
Alright, so we just like to thank you for this opportunity to come and present in front of everyone. We've been a lot of stuff by ourselves, but connecting the board, student board, it's really special to us, and we're just not only willing to listen, like I said earlier. So we'd like to publicly thank a couple.
So we would like to thank the Board of Education for giving us this opportunity to present today, and thank you for all your support throughout the years. We most likely would not be nearly as successful as we are without your help. So we're truly grateful for the opportunity to not only embrace our role as members of student government, but also represent our students and be able to talk with the adults at Sweet Home so that we can truly give our students a voice in what happens here. We'd like to thank our central office administrators, Mr. Ginestri, Mr. Feldman, Miss, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Bayless.
Yep.
Miss Bayless. Thank you.
That's okay.
And Mr. Wolf for being extremely cooperative and truly listening to all of our ideas and giving us the opportunity and the help that we needed in order to fully realize those ideas and achieve our goals. We'd also like to thank our high school administration, Mr. Perry, Ms. De La Plante, Mr. Morton, Ms. Doria, and Mr. Zagoda for also being extremely supportive and helping us realize our goals and truly pointing us in the right direction when we needed it and working with us to implement our ideas and truly succeed in representing our students and giving them all a voice. And we'd also like to thank our teachers for being extremely patient with us and guiding us through thick and thin, through all of our problems. And with our development into young adults, we'd also like to thank them for helping us become successful individuals and helping us be problem solvers and truly find a way to be content with what we do here at Sweet Home.
We'd also like to thank our support staff for being the unsung heroes of our school, doing their work to perfection and being the foundation of our district. A lot of times support staff don't get acknowledged. Our high school PTSA for being supportive and showing us we always have people there for us and our ideas. Our Willow Ridge PTSA for willing to collaborate on our ideas and giving us a and Mr. Ryan from Maple Year active because I took hours and length our goals to the entire. As to that, as I mentioned earlier, we really pride ourselves on following our all of us or none of us. Glad that you guys are allowing us to do that. The entire student.
We'd like to open this up to questions. If any of you have any questions for us or them, for me, for any of the members of student government who are currently present. Do we have any takers?
Go ahead, Kaylee.
For the people working on the garden specifically, I have a very similar goal with the new community center that's being opened in the north end of Sweet Home. I really want to get a community garden at the community center. I don't know if it'll be possible there either, but I really want to try, and it would be awesome to work with you on that. I want to go full steam ahead on that as soon as the opportunity is there. So.
If I could just help, this is Willow Ridge PTSA has been instrumental in heading their project, and a group of kids and myself sat in on their PTSA Zoom meeting last week, and they have a great head start. I would reach out.
Super cool. Excellent. And if you guys want to get, if you guys want to be involved in that, it's not started yet. The community center is not yet open, but when it happens, yeah. And also just like, wow. Wow. You guys are like, wow, that's all I could think of. I recognized when you guys were going through your organizational structure that we do have a lot of the same policies and procedures, but it seems like you guys are almost more like official than we are. So like, well done. We are very official, but you guys have it down like pat. Well done.
I'm going to jump, and I'll leave it to anybody in the group. I know you haven't appointed the members of your judicial branch yet, but you're hoping to do that soon. I obviously know what a judicial branch does in the government. I'm curious where you think this will fit into Sweet Home and what you can do with it or what you can't do with it. And that's, I guess, go ahead.
I'd like to answer that. So we had a couple of ideas with
Yeah.
Since you're not reading, you might as
We
well.
had a couple of ideas for our judicial branch. Our first idea, which is more centered on student government, was an accountability branch holding students. It would be confidential. The students, the members of the judicial branch would be confidential. People wouldn't know who they were, but it would be, they would do weekly check-ins on whether students in student government and members of the student government body itself were doing their work as they were supposed to. If they weren't, there would be a process of judicial review where they would either be, they would be notifying Mrs. Bruce, and Mrs. Bruce and the president and vice president would have to have a meeting with them to try to get them back on track. And if that doesn't work, then further action would need to be taken. And of course, if the people in question are the president or the vice president, then it'd be Mrs. Bruce and the other member of the group. Our other idea was a broader idea. It was kind of a student, speaker for students who get disciplinary actions taken on them. A lot of students that I know personally and a lot of students in general have mentioned that they don't necessarily get to tell their whole story when they get in trouble. A lot of students who get detention or who get suspended feel that part of their punishment is unfair or could have been done a bit differently. And so we don't know how possible it is for that to happen, which is the confidentiality part of that. But we hope to work with the administration team to see if we can possibly be a voice for those students who feel that they've been unfairly or unfairly in part suspended or given detention. And so those are our two main ideas. And Hunter, is there anything?
If I could just add, if I could just give you some context. So when our constitutional convention held in this room back in 2018, they did create this idea for a judicial branch, but obviously the complexities would be something we have to discuss, and the intricacies with the high school administration, level administration. Just haven't been able to clearly navigate like what that could look like. So we want to have these conversations, but it's kind of like we started student government, COVID hit, and now we're finally restarting these types of conversations. So we understand that it's complicated and layered complex. But if there's a way we can make it happen, or how we can make it happen, we're totally open. Any ideas? We embrace them, but Hunter wants to.
Yeah. A broader application was meant to more so work with the high school as a general, the entire student body. We haven't yet figured out how to do that, so we would like to meet with the high school administration and all of our administrators sometime soon to discuss the application of how we can exactly work out how to conduct these sort of judicial reviews, if you will. Yeah, it's a complicated process with answers that we don't have yet. There's a lot of unknown variables involved, and so to find those variables, it's going to be a lot of discussing, a lot of meetings, definitely.
So at, I guess, a basic foundational level, we were thinking that our other two branches just in-house, but then as a larger school initiative, and we do something, maybe some, waiting to have those conversations with that, you know.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
First of all, I'd just like to thank all of you for being here. It's nice to see students because really everything we do it's all about you. And so it's a great job. I would, two recommendations. The first one is on the garden. Just if I think it would, you might want to think about putting a quote or something in there. Just as a suggestion, you could put something like you can cram for a test, but you can't cram for life. And, it goes with the idea of a garden, right? And then also, aside from these kind of formal back and forth, it might be nice, something to think about is having, I noticed it was Chili Billy's or,
Yeah.
That would be like maybe an ice cream social that you can have with all the board members, because, or that would be something I'd look forward to attending because, then you can have a little more social conversation. And I think there's a lot of information that can be gathered through those kinds of venues as well.
And Brian really likes ice cream.
I could tell. I think he was trying to get some ice cream.
Anybody else? I'd actually just like to say a couple things. You had a whole slide up there that said, thank you, thank you, thank you to different people. Well, we're saying thank you to you. You are the movers and shakers in our school community, and you are making such a difference during a pandemic. Okay, so you're making a difference out there. I jotted a couple notes. The halal food, that I think would be a great thing to continue because we talk about how many different cultures we have in Sweet Home, and food brings people together, right?
Actually, Marianne, really quick, is that available for the other schools as well?
So speaking on that,
Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, you go ahead.
so halal food, obviously starting it on January 12th, we had a couple of days consecutively where halal burgers were served. However, finding vendors for halal food is really difficult because that's not something that's common in public schools throughout New York State. And so Mrs. Sajak has worked really hard and has been able to find halal burgers. And recently she's found halal meatballs and halal chicken. So we're expanding our options, and we hope to make that more regular. Once that becomes more regular in the high school, we hope to expand that on the district level as well. However, the main problem that Mrs. Sajak is facing is finding vendors. So we'd appreciate any help that we can get on that.
Great. Just wanted to point out, I hope you all realize the skills you're doing, whether it's the peer counseling, those are life skills. You're just not going to leave Sweet Home and say, done. I mean, you're going to be using these in college, in the workforce. So you're also gaining something from this by gaining these life skills. And I know a few of the board members have given suggestions, so I'm going to give you one too. We're going to meet back here next year to see how things have gone. I think this should be an annual thing since you are all the ones that are kind of forming on top and it flows down. let's see how things went and how you've progressed.
I'm just gonna build off of that for just a second.
for it.
I didn't have anything to say except kudos. You guys are amazing. Everything is, it's just so exciting to see all the work that you've put in and the things that you're doing. But Mrs. Jason said something that resonated back in the beginning of the presentation. You spoke on legacy. This is your legacy here. This is what you're leaving behind. And what you set in motion, kids that are currently in kindergarten are going to experience that when they get here. So keep that in mind when you're building, because that in and of itself is exciting. So when you think about your legacy and you think about your legacy here, remember those things. Remember the things that you've learned from Mrs. Bruce and the community, and everything that you're taking and putting into action. You learned that from somewhere. And now you're showing the next group of kids that they can do that. So when you speak on legacy, this is an amazing legacy to leave.
And in a few years, we expect to see some of you sitting on this board, okay?
You can do it.
You can do it.
Has been done.
It has been done. Mr.
Absolutely.
Genestri.
From a district office perspective, want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I know it's been a partnership and we want to make it stronger every time we get together. I will say, watching Roman work, he has been very transparent and brought the issues that the student body is facing to the board table in his report every time we have a meeting. He's done a great job representing the group. And so the things we heard here tonight were really not we know you're doing a lot of work, but they're really not a surprise to us because Roman does a great job in his report. And so he's bringing these things to the table. But I also, with student government, there's a structure in place, and I think that structure is so important. But your dedication to service is just amazing. And that is what sets you apart as a student government, is that you're always looking to serve others and making sure that every student has a voice here at Sweet Home. And it really, it's unique in a way, because your structure is so strong, you're able to do those things and make sure that everybody is represented. So from the executive to the judicial, if we ever want to throw ideas at a wall, and executive and legislative, but if you ever want to throw ideas in the wall about judicial and what we can do there, we'd be happy from a district office standpoint to have that conversation as well. But thank you for all your service, really, is to every student at Sweet Home. So it's been great.
Okay.
I just wanted to say one last thing. I'm super thankful and grateful that I got the opportunity to work with such
Sure.
amazing kids. As you can see, it's very cool. They're a super dedicated and committed group, so I'm grateful.
And we're grateful for you advising this group, because it's a big structure, but the work that you're doing and guiding and leading has been awesome. So thank you, Mrs. Bruce, too.
They're welcome to stay for the DEI portion, correct?
Well, we have budget and DEI tonight, so, but if this is it, it is late, and, this is, if
good
you'd like to
segue.
stay, you can, but this is a great segue to,
Not feel pressured to
addition.
stay
No
either,
pressure.
because you might have homework to do.
You're riveting, Mr. Feldman.
I just have ice cream on the brain now.
Oh, and on Kindness Day, we accept candy at district office anytime.
Well done, you guys. Really well done.
Nice
Thank
job,
you.
guys.
Great presentation. Well
Great
done,
job.
gentlemen. Well done.
Good job.
Thank you.
So I can't get that.
Roman, are you going to be okay time-wise?
Again, I have to leave before 9, but I can stay for a bit.
So maybe after.
We ready? Okay.
Ready.
So
Tough act to follow, obviously, but I'll do my best. This is the second of our budget study sessions to discuss the 2022, 2023 budget. Mr. Genestri, if you just hit the next slide. I'll go through these pretty quickly. These are things that we've seen at our initial budget study session, but just some important dates to kind of pinpoint and remember as we go forward. For those that are interested in running for the school board, your nominating petitions are due to district office on April 18th. The last day for the board to adopt the proposed budget 2022-2023 is April 22nd. We'll adopt ours on April the 19th. And then public hearing on the adopted budget, ours is May 3rd. And of course, the annual budget vote and school board election will be held right here in this room on Tuesday, May 17th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Just a small plug, Dollars for Scholars will be doing a chicken barbecue from 3 to 6 that day. The next slide.
Would you just, for maybe people watching this at home, absentee ballots?
Absentee ballots are ready. They can be call the district clerk's office at 250-1400. They can be mailed out. They need to be back in the mail 1 week prior to the Board of Education election, or if they're returning them in person that day of. Okay. Next slide. We're just, this is kind of a breakout of our budget study sessions to this point. We're going to talk a little bit about where we sit in terms of the budget tonight on March the 15th. We'll come back and provide you with our final update on April the 5th. Hopefully at that point in time, the state budget will be passed and through so that we can make some assumptions there. As I mentioned to you, the budget hearing will be on April the 19th and the Meet the Candidates night on May the 3rd. Next slide. So when we met on February the 12th, this is just kind of a snapshot as to where we were on February 12th. We had estimated revenues at $89,326,479. That included a tax levy. Remember, that's subject to the tax cap, that tax levy of $53,446,479. Each of those increases, the revenues were about 4%, and the local tax levy was 4.6%. We estimated expenditures at that point in time in what we call a program maintenance budget. So basically just maintaining everything at the levels we were or are presently in this year at $89,035,410, another 4% increase. And on February the 12th, we had a surplus of about $291,000. Next slide, please, Mr. Genestri. So when we left you that Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, whatever time it was, we had to, we had to get to work again. The budget process is just that. It's a process. So I believe that we've determined that the board does indeed want to go to the tax cap, right to the cap. And then we had to continue to monitor any updates on state aid, sales tax projections, look at the BOCES tax capital exclusion that impacts our tax cap. We had to work through the federal funds and corresponding salaries. Remember, we had a discussion about where we put those salaries, because some of those salaries in federal funds need to make their way back into the general fund budget by a certain timeline. We need to prioritize some of the staffing wish lists that we presented to you on February the 12th and get them in the budget. We did more work in my office to kind of go line by line through the budget and look at ways to potentially save, to add to other areas as well. And then one of the other things, the last two bullets on there, finalize our BOCES participation number. As you know, we spend a significant amount of dollars, upwards of $4 million with BOCES. We had to finalize that and work through that. And then the last piece of it is we needed some information on our health insurance, the New York 44 Trust that we do through BOCES. If you remember correctly, in February 12th, I projected a 4% increase. I'm happy to report that as of about 4:15 this afternoon, Erie One BOCES said that the districts will, the increase passed along to the districts for next year would be 1.5%. So last year, from last year to this year, there was no increase. This year, it's a 1.5% increase. So if we, for that additional 2.5% that I had in the budget really kind of materializes to about $250,000 in savings for us. So we'll talk a little bit about that kind of coming up. Janestri, if you could hit the next slide. Again, on February the 12th, this is kind of the wish list that we gave to you, to the board. I don't want to read all of the teaching positions that we looked at, but we did talk about potentially on a wish list 14 new teachers. And we use we've always used that marker of $70,000 in terms of salary, benefits, and a retirement system as a marker. So we were talking about a potential budgetary impact of $980,000. When we left you on the 12th, Mr. Janestri indicated that we would go back and talk with the building leadership teams, make some decisions based upon staffing, and you'll see here shortly that we will make a recommendation to you about staffing. Next slide, please. So the other piece of it, from a wish list item, there are a couple of things that we really kind of need to look at. Much like everything else, there's been some pricing increases in many of the things that we do, really at the service level, including transportation, bus parts, tires, gasoline, and then equipment on the buildings and grounds side. So we, on February the 12th, looked at a potential budgetary impact to add to those budget line items of about $100,000. And then, as you know, Mrs. Bayless is going to give you a little update here tonight, but the district is embarking on a district-wide DEI initiative, and we talked about adding some money to our general fund budget to help support that and that cause. And again, we estimated that number at $50,000. So that staffing piece, these couple of wish list items, we need to look at and kind of prioritize and find ways to get into the budget. Next slide, please, Mr. Janestri. So we have to, a couple of things have changed since we've been with you last in February. We've had to adjust our tax cap calculation. So since September the 12th, since February the 12th, we've had revised numbers come to us from BOCES on our capital project tax cap exclusion, which was a decrease of $21,754. And then our bus purchases, our number for bus purchases on February the 12th, we did estimate our bus purchases at $565,000. They are in fact going to be around $516,000. That is for 3 large buses, 1 small bus, as well as 1 wheelchair bus.
Are they new?
They are new. They are all new. So that number does impact our tax cap calculation. So our new tax cap calculation, based upon the decrease to the BOCES capital project exclusion, as well as the lower of the price for our bus purchases next year, we've decreased our tax levy limit now sits at $53,321,588. So that's a decrease of $124,891 from our February estimate, which that translates to, that decrease hits us on the revenue side. So we had to find ways to kind of to make that up. So if you just flip the next page, Mr. Janestri, this, yep, there you go, you got it. Okay, there we go. So this is just kind of the spreadsheet that we've traditionally given you since we've last met. Again, on the revenue side, We're really driven by that tax levy number, in addition to all of our aids, state aids, those types of things. So,
A question for you.
Yep.
And you know, I've looked at the sheet and I bait the last sheet rather.
yep.
But
Mike, would
something
you
that,
just go back?
that just about escapes me every year, and I'm sure it does for our voters too. So tax cap is set at 2%.
Yes.
So how do we get to 4.34 in a nutshell?
So there are a number of exclusions, basically premised on capital improvements. Anything that we purchase from a capital improvement standpoint, so our debt service is a huge factor in that. We carry about $6 million in debt annually, based upon capital projects of past, as well as anything that we purchase. Buses in this instance also impacts that. So that's those primarily, along with the BOCES capital project tax cap exclusion, those are primarily the reasons that we go above that 2%. Yep, go ahead, Mike.
Just for taxpayer purposes too, that it could be, our limit might be under 2% if we don't have those exclusions or debt. There are certain circumstances where you could be a negative tax cap as well. So the 2% is kind of the ball, but it can go over.
It's driven, and we talked to you a little bit about it on February the 12th, but it's really driven on the rate of inflation.
Right.
And the rate of inflation is above 4%. So it's either 2%, just like that baseline is either 2% or CPI, whichever is lower. And given that, you know, we're at about a 4.5% inflation rate, that starting point is 2%. And then the exclusion, capital exclusion that we have goes over and above that.
That's the key I was looking for. Like I said, it's sometimes you hear 2% and then you look at 4.3 on your, and
Yeah.
people ask.
Understood. So, Mr. Genestri, if you just go back. Again, there are really two things that really drive the revenue side: the tax levy, which is what we talked about in the last slide, the aids that we receive from the state level. Since we've met in February, there's been no changes to any projections in state aid. I would imagine that where we gave you in February is where we'll end up. I really believe that. You know, if you remember under previous administrations, it was always a cat and mouse game. We'd get a number, then it'd go to the House and it'd go to the Assembly, and then that number would change, and then the governor would, you know, probably around April the 5th, would put out state numbers, and we'd all scramble to get our budgets right. So, but I really believe where we are right now is about 95% close to where we'll be. So those have all remained the same. And then based upon kind of where we were in terms of sales tax, I did increase the sales tax proceeds $75,000. So you'll see that our revenues now sit at $89,276,588, an increase of, that number's wrong, over $3.5 million, or 3.9%. Would you just hit the next slide, Mr. Genestri? So on the expense side, there are some things that, you know, we talked to you a little bit about on February the 12th, most notably our federal funds. You know, we have been very fortunate here at Sweet Home to receive federal funding this year and in years coming, but also in 1920 through the original CARES Act. But the CARES Act, the second CARES Act, they call it CRSA, or the American Rescue Plan, there are a number of positions that we have funded out of those federal grants. So when those federal grants go away, we have to find a way to get those back into the general fund. And there were a number of them that were in the general fund, but the feedback that I thought I heard on February the 12th, and Mr. Genestri as well, that it was the wish of the board to get these back into our budget because we have made obviously a commitment to these folks. And at the end of 2023, next school year, or even into 2024 with the American Rescue Plan, we didn't want to run the risk of not being able to get those back into the budget. We did talk about initially that those positions would go back into the budget if we had a corresponding retirement, but we've been lucky enough to try and work to get these into the budget. So if you'd hit the next slide, Mr. Genestri. So you'll see there that for the most part, we've been very, very fortunate to get the 8 elementary teachers on the American Rescue Plan. We were able to get those into our budget this year. And the remaining pieces, both on the CARES Act side as well as on the American Rescue side, we've moved into the general fund budget with one exception. And that exception is the 8 teacher aides that we are paying out of the American Rescue Plan. And really, I don't know, Mike, if you want to speak to kind of our process there, I'll talk a little bit about it. But the thought process there was those folks work for us and then work towards, they often leave for permanent teaching positions. So, and quite frankly, as we get into, we don't know obviously what 2024 is going to look like. Those positions provide strong support to many of our elementary buildings and classrooms, well, really buildings all across the district. But we're not sure as to, how they'll look as we get into the 24-25 school year. So we felt at this time, we'd hold them back and we'd keep them in the American Rescue Plan and kind of, look at them as we kind of go along calendar wise. So I don't know, Mike, if that kind of
And
captures
I
it.
just reiterate what Don said. Even today, I observed a teacher at Maplemere who was an aide last year. And so those teacher aide positions are in flux in a good way, especially if, and it's a good pipeline to teaching here at Sweet Home. So there's flexibility there, and we thought that was a good spot. If we were going to have something in ARP, that would be the place to keep it.
But I don't want teachers or the teachers' aides maybe watching this at home thinking, oh boy.
No,
we're,
They committed to us.
yeah, we are fully committed to them. I think that this provides us some flexibility to kind of take a look at things as we go forward. I will say that, from a next year's budget standpoint, remember, we're still not fully funded in terms of state aid. So we expect another hefty increase in state aid next year that could help us get those into the
So
budget.
again, for people watching at home,
Yeah.
maybe
Mhm.
for our teachers' aides, they don't need to worry.
Nope.
And we're looking at it as a teacher development program for us. And I think that's exciting, and I think they should be excited
It
about that
absolutely is.
too.
It's just if those teachers choose to stay in the roles they are, I don't
Correct.
want them feeling like,
Absolutely.
uh-oh. 'cause
Absolutely.
They really committed to us in a
Mhm.
time of need, and
Right.
we kind of owe them something.
Agreed.
100%.
So you might be asking yourself, well, how did we do this? So I'll answer that question. As I made mention to you in an earlier slide, we did finalize our BOCES participation bill. We estimated on the high side, which is kind of what we always do in February, but we realized about $180,000 in savings there. We took a closer look at many of our transportation, or many of our other salary lines, but we did find some significant savings in transportation areas and buildings and grounds. The reduction of the bus prices obviously affect the budget on the expense side as well. And then that last one that you can't see there because the doc is there,
I
but
tried to get the doc.
that's
on,
okay.
but
That's all right. That's okay. But we also got some good news on the New York State employee retirement system. That contribution percentage has decreased significantly, almost 4 percentage points from this year to next, which is a significant savings for us, over
What are we talking from what to
$230,000.
what?
It was about, don't quote me on this, but I think if I remember correctly, it was 16.2% down to 11.8%.
Oh, that's a big,
So the teachers' retirement system, where they were at 9.6% this present year, they're going up just over a half a percentage point to about 10.2%, which we had budgeted. So we're fine there, but we did realize some savings in the ERS system. So if you'd hit the next slide, Mr. Genestri. So this gets back to our wish list items, okay? This gets back to our wish list items. Our recommendation to you to add to the 2022-2023 school budget Remember, Mr. Genestri did speak with you about 2 district level, office level positions. One would be an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. The second would be a director of human resources. And then we are recommending at this point in time 3 special education teachers across the district and 1 speech language pathologist. So those are all going to be partially funded by that initial 290,000 surplus that we had back in February, plus the remainder of the ERS savings. I say partially because in the next slide, you're going to see that that at this present moment, we're at a bit of a deficit in terms of our budget. I don't know if anybody, I guess I'll stop there for a second before we get to this point. From a staffing perspective, I don't know if anybody has any questions at this point.
How many faculty do we have roughly?
343-ish.
I guess I just added them up. So there's 25 additional faculty members. So it's almost about an 8% growth in staff and faculty. I have some concern. I guess, we talked a little bit about this. I talked a little bit about this at the February meeting, that there's kind of a glide path to, I know you just said they're in the budget, but if revenues are increasing at 4%, we're adding 8% to our faculty. That's our highest cost item is human capital. That we're doing it smartly, that these folks are being put in the right spot, that they're being utilized, and we're looking at, are we right sized? I just worry, just from a financial, obviously, the more faculty we have, the better served the students are, and I get that. But I do have some concern about adding fixed costs that outpace our revenue. Just a point. I'm not looking for a response, but just a point.
I just wanted to ask, I know somewhere we had talked about additional mental health, because I know that is, as a board goal, something we're really stressed. So nothing in the line of mental health.
I'll let Mr. Genestri answer that one.
I think with, we touched on it as far as at the February 12th meeting about the structure in place to address that. And so we would like to put that structure in place and have that new structure do a audit basically of where we are with our with the people we have on staff right now in mental health, and then so add that leadership basically that we saw lacking. Once that structure is in place and that audit is done, we'll do an evaluation of resources, but we feel like we're in a good place with resources, but yeah, there could be some additions after that audit is done.
And I'm not saying those aren't good. I mean, especially since we heard from our special ed report
week,
that they really are needed. I mean, there's no question about that. So, but I just want to sneak that mental health part in there because I know we're always looking.
Absolutely.
So with those recommendations in place, kind of the tweaking that we've done to our initial program maintenance budget, we are projecting revenues right now of $89,276,588, 3.9% of an increase. Of that, 89.2 million, 53,321,588 is our local tax levy increase under the cap. Again, that means if the board were to adopt this budget, that on May the 17th, we'd only need a simple majority. We're not going over the cap. And then we've got budgeted expenditures of $89,398,720. And that puts us right now at a $122,132 deficit. What I will say, if we flip to the next slide, that this presentation obviously was done before the good news that we got today from Area 1 BOCES. So, and the New York 44 Trust. So that savings will be directly applied to this deficit. We'll close that deficit. We'll be able to do things with buildings and grounds, with transportation, their supply codes, as well as the DEI initiative, and maybe tweak some other things along the way. So I feel as though that we are in a very good place budgetarily, and we'll look to present a balanced budget to you on April 5th, I think it is. So if you just hit the next slide, Mr. Genestri. Oh, here I go. We'll obviously now with the, is
He has to leave.
okay, that's fine.
Can we just pause on this for a
Sure.
minute, just so we can hear an update from Roman?
Sure.
You already had our update.
I didn't want to leave you out of the conversation if you had any additional things to add.
No, I'm just glad that we were able to have this experience and get to talk with all of you. All
Thank
right.
you for bringing that.
Thanks, Roman.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
I
night.
apologize for interrupting.
No, please. This is all too
Gotta
riveting.
be safe.
So as I mentioned, we'll be able to do those top 3 bullet items to get those types of things into the budget. We'll also continue to monitor our sales tax receipts. If things kind of keep going the way that they're going, we might be able to add a little bit to that. The next payment comes in March, at the end of March. So we'll get an idea as far as that goes. And we'll just keep looking at the budget line by line, but 100% confident that we'll be able to present to you a balanced budget on April the 5th. Next
Not
slide.
using any of our reserves.
Not using any of our reserves. Can you hit that again, see what happens? There we go. All right, okay, I don't know why I did that. So this kind of gives you a snapshot as to where we are in terms of tax rates. Based upon this budget right now. And remember, again, we're using assessed values from the 2021 school year. Obviously, we don't have the new assessed values yet. An equalization rate of Amherst at 88% and a Tonawanda equalization rate of 33%. So on a home with a market value of $150,000, from year to year, this would be an estimated increase of $96 on the Amherst side and $95 on the Tonawanda side. So, and then I don't believe I have anything else. So if you have any questions as far as that goes, we'll kind of keep you posted as we go along. We'll give you a little update again on the 5th, but it'll be a balanced budget come the 5th, and then you will hopefully adopt our budget on the 19th. Scott?
Couple of quick, do you have any idea when they expect to hear what equalization rates are using?
I don't know. I can look and see. It's generally, Tonawanda or Amherst was very late last year. So I think that we'll probably have them hopefully by the budget vote, but I don't know that for certain.
Just curious. And the other part of it is, having watched, my son sells real estate, so having watched prices, I'm wondering if that $150,000 average house is realistic now, but I don't want to change it this year.
Yeah, no, I know. I thought about that too, just given about where the real estate market is.
Crazy.
It is crazy, but it gives just a benchmark more than anything else.
Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions?
Just on the reserves, I know they're not shown here. So at what point, if the unfunded or the reserve, we have a cap on that?
Unassigned?
The unassigned, yeah.
So that's not a reserve. That's not a reserve.
Or
It's
the
an unassigned fund balance.
Okay, so that, when do we tap into that? Like I know it's kind of as an ad need, that's just really a cash flow issue, is that?
Correct.
Correct,
Yep.
I mean, the budget, it's balanced.
So
As we go through the year, something may come up there, we tap into that? Is
yeah,
that-
let's just say that, I don't know, we needed to replace the heating system at Willow Ridge and it cost us $400,000. That's where we would go in that instance. Because obviously we wouldn't have budgeted for it. So think of it as a rainy day fund more than anything else.
But we're limited on what we can have in that.
We're limited to 4%.
Right, so.
But you, just in the interest of transparency, last August, we did recommend, and we are at about 5.5% now, because that number includes the balance of our 105H accounts for our employees, because we had to bring those out of a trust and agency account back into the general fund, and that's how we did that.
But if we don't, if we, every year we're required to balance the budget,
Yes.
so I guess I'm just talking here in theory. If the budget is always balanced, and then I'm trying to understand, like, if there's never any contingencies, would that, what causes the reserve to increase? I mean, it's what's left over at the end of the year if we have some
It's
extra?
it's based upon 4% of your budget. So, we would, whatever our annual budget is, this year it's 85,923,000 something or other. So whatever 4% of that is, that would be the threshold amount.
Right, so are we adding to what I'm asking is any of the revenue that's going into our current budget, it's all going into expenditures, or is any of it increasing that reserve?
So
I guess I'm trying to
I
understand.
got it. I just want to get away from,
Down.
it's not a reserve. It's not a reserve. It's an
Well,
unassigned. That's okay. I just want, because there are reserves, I just don't want people to get confused about it. So in August, when we set the tax rates, we'll also make a recommendation to you as to our reserve accounts, the 7 or 8 reserve accounts that we have. Any surplus that is resulted from this present year's budget, we'll make a recommendation to put into how many ever reserve accounts. And then based upon our budget this year, if it passes, we'll make a recommendation to you that we do X percentage to the unassigned fund balance for next year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm just,
I think it's when revenue and expense projections don't equal reality. So you're going to have under and overruns on both sides of the balance sheet. That's
what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Right.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't somehow, that wasn't built in, that it's more, that we're not necessarily purposely adding to it.
No, so I'll say this, we do carry a revenue forward every year from budget to budget that is an assigned fund balance. So the assigned fund balance is $2.4 million. So this present year budget has got to generate somewhere $2.4 million so I can carry it forward to next year. If I don't generate $2.4 million, I start next year in a hole, revenue-wise. Okay. Scott?
With moving some of the positions back into the general fund from either the federal acts, are we leaving any money on the table there that we could otherwise get? Or is there other ways to get some of that money?
We're on camera, so let's see. Those positions will be paid still out of the federal funds, okay? And then the positions that we put into the budget will be essentially surplus for us at the end of next year. So we're not losing any money that way, but those positions that are now in general fund will add to our surplus at the end of the year. Okay, and then when that federal funding goes away, the idea is that those would go back into the general fund. They are there now, but in the end, it's going to be used to give us surplus.
Thanks.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
It's just really a shell game.
Well, I think that's a game that every district is playing. So.
Yeah. So again,
Less of a shell game this year than in years past.
yes.
Correct.
However, just to kind of just give you a little, like if there are some things, right, that are in our plans now, because each of our, the CARES Act 2 plan has been approved, the American Rescue Plan has been approved. If Mr. Genestri says, I'd really like to, I don't know, build a turf field at the middle school, just as a happenstance, we can make an amendment to our policy and submit it and hopefully get it approved. So we can adjust our plans if need be.
Okay.
That was probably a bad example, Mr. Genestri. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Don, for putting that together. And as the board knows, there's news with the budget probably twice a day. And so so Don and his team is doing a great job just as a constant updates and tweaking and here and there. And so a lot of work goes into it. So thank you to you and your team.
I have to get a battery pack out of it.
All right, and our next presentation, thank you to Mrs. Bayless for putting this together and talking about our DEI committee. And we promised the board an update tonight. And so we want to move forward with that update.
For sure, and I'm assuming you saved the best for last.
That's right.
So we're on at 9 o'clock. So I appreciate that it's late. I can talk forever about DEI, but I won't tonight. I always get very excited about this topic. As you know, it's a passion of mine, as it is for everyone. And so I just want to start by thanking the board again for this opportunity. As Mr. Genestri announced, some of our reorganization at district office and some of the transition work with the change in my title and the work that we're moving forward with the DEI. We've had tremendous response across the state from our through our listservs and what have you, people wanting to know what you're doing at Sweet Home. Like, what is this idea? What is this, like some of these shifts and this committee? And so it's been really exciting to be a part of an innovative program, an innovative initiative that feels very much on the cutting edge. And it very much feels like we're in the right place at the right time. So if we wanted to jump to the first slide, I just wanted to, this is just a picture of everyone at work. And just to give some face to our committee, there's Musab, who was here. He's in one of those, Mr. Perry, who's been a tremendous supporter of our DEI work and has really been instrumental in bringing all of our students together at the high school, whether it's through the student government and transitioning into the DEI, but also through other avenues of leadership at the high school. So just a little quick look at some of our team at work. But in the next slide, just to move into our work, we've talked about this, of course, at the district here at the board about our FOIR project. But for the benefit of those who may be watching from home, we're super excited about our entryway now into district office. And it was a collaboration of a lot of members of our district office team. But we know that, this is all about first impressions, right? And we want to, when we say we welcome people to district, we want to, put our money where our mouth, right? So the first impression when you come into district office for our new families who are registering, for guests and staff and visitors and people doing business with our district, the foyer is a super welcoming place, and we've gotten a number of compliments and comments and feedback on the look of the foyer. So just for the sake of I know our board has seen the foyer, but the next couple slides, just a couple before and after pictures, that you can see that some work has been done to improve communication and updating visuals and signage to our district office and to the various departments within the district. This is one of our feature walls, of course. It features our mission statement, our trademark SH, the lit up SED or LED light SH. There's the community mural, which is in a better picture in a slide coming up, but also one of our featured quotes on education from Martin Luther King. The next slide just shows the entrance to the high school and pulling together the theme around the foyer. The next slide is another feature wall that went from, we had fairly bland walls to now walls that have the welcome in 40+ languages, together with some quotes on diversity and unity from Maya Angelou and from that child poet Maddie Stepanek. So just some opportunities where people are sitting in the foyer to look around. And this is my HR team, so I had to give them kudos. Karen Galley, who's with us tonight, was really, really instrumental in pulling together a community mural together with Debbie Christ and Lee Lawrenson. This mural would not have happened without the three of them. And Karen in particular. So we're super proud of it. It's a focal point of the foyer and is something that is we're very proud of. So I just wanted to highlight the team in HR for the work that they did to help pull the FOIA project together. In our next slide, as we move into continuing our story, right, we start from the entrance, like when you step into our district. But as we move forward with our DEI initiative and working through our DEI webpage, our goal is to tell our story. We very much believe, Karen Galley is sitting in on our DEI meetings to document. She's our historian, and whether it's through pictures and note taking and what have you, we're bringing our story to life, and we want to share our journey and be very transparent with our journey. So the website is almost ready to launch. We've just been waiting for a couple bios and pictures from members of our team, but it features the board goal. It features our DEI committee members, our accomplishments to date, and meeting summaries to keep our community informed of our work. As we move into our actual meetings, then the first meeting, with the next slide, the first meeting was very much about charting our course and getting everyone together and on the same page and getting to know one another. So we spent time with introductions and doing some activities to develop community and common understanding among our group. It was very important, of course, to establish group norms for dialogue. The first meeting was very much, a nice interaction among our team about establishing norms and what have you, which became very helpful in the second meeting when we actually got into some important conversations that were a little more, I wouldn't say controversial, but more opinions were shared at that meeting. And I think the fact that we set our ground rules in the meeting before and our norms for dialogue, it was very helpful because I felt that conversation was important, but also very constructive.
What's an example of norms for dialogue?
So the big idea is that when you're having a dialogue is different from a debate. So in a debate, of course, there's two sides or there's multiple sides, and the goal is to win. So I'm debating you, and I feel my argument is more valid than your argument, and we debate it with the intent of one proving the side over another side. So it's an argument, if you will, versus a conversation where you're sharing ideas, but true dialogue is where you come to understanding and you appreciate and value other perspectives with the goal of creating common understanding and generating empathy. So in terms of group norms, when you're having conversations, it's about listening to one another, validating each other's opinions, not being judgmental, being confidential, providing an open, a safe space to have conversation where you can feel you can share your beliefs without being judged in an open, in a safe forum that can then lead to common understanding and empathy. So it was really important to set that tone in our first committee meeting so that we could get to the more difficult conversations. We also started with our social identity wheel and the cycle of socialization, because it's very important for everyone to understand the identity that you bring to the table and how your experiences, how you filter the world through your lens, which is based on your social experiences, and that we all come to the table with different lenses and different experiences, and the importance of recognizing those identities. So after we left that meeting with some homework, and the homework for that night was, if we could develop the perfect school community, and it valued all of our members of our school community, what would it look like? What would it feel like? What would the experience be? And so we started our second meeting. Mr. Genestri, if you move to the second slide, second meeting was to revisit that topic. And we revisited it in the context of, if we were to develop the perfect community, we did a brainstorming session, and we were by table, and we brainstormed what that perfect community might look like, because we were setting the tone for, to get to the perfect community, we have to decide what that perfect community might be, because that's going to drive our mission, because we got to get there. And so we sat and talked about what it might look like, sound like, feel like, and then because it drove the why of our committee, like, why are we here, and what should our mission be? And so Mr. Genestri then shared some data with the committee that was some eye-opening data. It's not data that would necessarily surprise you, but when you put it in the context of, in general terms, our district does very well, and we're very proud of the work of all of our students, teachers, faculty, staff, community, parents, administrators, and our board, we work really hard, we do really well. But when you break down the data, there's some alarming statistics that show that all of our subgroups are not performing at the same rate. And when we talk about equity, when we talk about access, and when we talk about inclusion, there's reason for us to look at, and we're not unusual, our data is not unusual compared to other districts, but when you break down the data, there are groups in our community that aren't performing at the same rate. And there's reasons behind that. And it goes back to stories, like what are the stories behind the data? So we wanted to take a look at the data because it drives our why. Why are we here? And what is our mission? So that we can begin to set the framework for how we might address those situations. And to that end, we also reviewed the pillars that State Ed had put together, the DEI pillars, to set the framework, which moves to where we're going to eventually move to in the next couple of meetings. And to the next slide, then we want to look at moving the idea of focusing on the first of all, setting policy. We know how important policy is. The board just sets policy. Our job is to honor and enforce policy in our district. But what is that policy and how does it reflect our mission and vision and our reaching that common understanding? And to that end, putting that framework together that supports the pillars of the State Ed framework, where we will then start to do some serious work, which leads me to, I'm going to jump to the next slide. We do want to present the committee to the board in June for a the full committee to share back with the board. But moving forward, what we want to do is, we're going to, if you could just go back, I'm sorry, Mr. Genestri. Right there, yeah, thank you. Nope. Yes, the next slide, I'm sorry, you were right.
This one.
Yes.
Okay.
Looking to take, like, how we want to structure that, the using the framework, setting up subgroups, and how we want to structure the work of those subgroups. And what Mr. Genestri and I had the good fortune to go to the NISCUS conference the last week. And we had the opportunity, we split up, but I had some opportunities to look at the DEI strand of the conference. And what was really helpful for me, and appreciated the opportunity to be there at a statewide conference to share and learn with exceptional leaders across the state, many of whom are doing this very important work and sharing their stories. And like the importance of looking at the auditing what we're currently doing. And so some of the sessions were on auditing our curriculum, like looking at the culturally responsive and sustaining curriculum, auditing our hiring process, and also auditing your discipline process. Because many things are tied together. When students are not performing well, they may have behavior issues. When they have behavior issues, they may be removed from the school setting. When they're removed from the school setting, they're losing out on instruction. They get behind in their performance at school, and it's just this cycle that repeats. And so looking at auditing those important areas to try to find where our gaps are, to try to push in reviewing systems and structures so that we can transform our systems and transform our structures so that they are more responsive. And one of the things, and I appreciated the presentation by our students tonight, one of the big takeaways, and I should have put it up there, was the importance of the student voice. I mean, I felt like, maybe I could just step aside and maybe Musab could have my position, right? Could he take any one of our jobs, right? So we've got tremendous students who have tremendous passion and intellect and interest, and the importance of bringing their voices to the table was a key takeaway. And I appreciate that and Mr. Perry's here, so I could just share that one of Mr. Perry's big pillars in his administration and his leadership team, which was evident tonight, is the importance of listening to the student voice. And I think that needs to permeate everything we do as we audit our curriculum, as we audit our hiring practices, as we audit discipline, as we audit student performance, is to listen to the voices of our students and learn from them what they need. We often, as adults, feel that we know all the, well, personally don't believe I know all the answers, but you feel that your experience leads you to know more of the answers than maybe students might. But I've learned in my career, and I'm sure you would all agree, that our students, if you listen to their needs and listen to what their experiences have been, they often hold the key to the answers. So I appreciate that Mr. Genestri is really focused as well on making sure that our student voice becomes a prominent voice in all of our conversations. So I think I would just, I think that is my end. But I wanted to thank, Mr. Johnson and Ms. McDonald sit on the DEI committee, appreciate their voices on the committee as well. I think that if they wanted to share anything, I would appreciate any thoughts that you might have tonight. But I know that many of the conversations have included how important, again, the student voice has been in our conversations, in our circles, and that coming together and focusing on as we move forward to be able to set up this structure that will lead us very shortly into the position to set up specific strategic teams to focus specifically and strategically on the areas that have been identified by the state education framework that I truly believe will be game changing. I think it's groundbreaking work. I think it's important work. I think it's a must do kind of work. And I feel very, very fortunate and blessed to be in a position to support the work here at Sweet Home. So I don't know if Kaylee or Scott want to share anything, or if you have any questions for me at this point.
Sure. I'd just like to add that you alluded to it at the beginning, but the committee is like having very difficult conversations and really trusting each other with some difficult questions that are uncomfortable, and you can feel it, and we're still able to have those conversations in a very respectful way. Like to the point where I was surprised that we were able in such a large group to navigate it as respectfully as we did, which was a very powerful moment. But then also just the wealth of knowledge that is in that space is outstanding. It is just hearing the ideas and the questions that people are asking. We already started getting into like very nitty gritty questions about the different processes that the district has and why we have them and our motivations for it, and different ways that we can begin approaching like very specific things like job hiring practices and student discipline. And it's just been very generative, and it's like you can feel the disappointment at the end of the 2 hours where we're like, no, we're just starting to get to the heart of it. We were running out of time. So it's been very, very exciting. And I'm looking forward to the subgroups that we can like get even more into it.
Yeah.
It's very exciting to be a part of it. Very energizing.
I'm just going to jump in, and it comes up at least some with what you were just talking about, but you asked about the establishing the group norms at the beginning. And I think that was exceptionally important. And it came up at the second meeting. It was some of what you talked about. And I know it took us off track, at least to some extent, because someone brought up a question that, it's different people had a different perspective on it. And we had a long conversation about it. But I think having the conversation, even though it took us off track, was very important because it set the tone for the group as to how the rest of our conversation should go as we move forward. So to me, doing that in that first meeting was an absolute must. And then letting that conversation play out, even though I know you both had more things you wanted to say, I think letting that conversation play out really made a big difference for the meeting itself and how the teams can interact with each other.
If you don't mind, if I can comment on that, I expected that conversation to happen about meeting 6. It took to meeting 2. And it was an important moment for the committee because of all the different stakeholder groups that are in the room, and they were able to comment and add their perspective to that conversation, made the respect level, I think, for everybody in the room go up. And we're in this together, and I thought it brought the room together. So yeah, we didn't get to everything, but that had to happen. And it was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, it was very good.
Obviously, this is a hugely important goal to the board and of course to me as well. And I'd like to be a good ambassador for it. So I'd ask the committee to consider, for those of us who aren't on it, to equip us to be those ambassadors. Like, so perfect example, I was at Maple Mere's PTA meeting. I brought up the important work that DEI was doing, the committee was doing. But of course, the logical question is, well, what does it really mean? Like, what's going to happen at Maple Mere? And I know that's asking for the answer before the question's even been formed. But if you can help us just, I don't want to say talking points, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. You know, I'm not looking for buzzy words or anything like that, but help us articulate
Like the direction.
and what it might mean, but what the student body should expect down the road, of course, but it's just so that we can better articulate the message.
I think that's
Thank
a
you.
really good point.
Absolutely.
And I'm hopeful that, it's taking, these first meetings to establish community and understanding and common, awareness and what have you in order to get into the important work. So it's kind of like, we're trying to get there, right? But once you're exactly right. Once we get to the point of being able to articulate what exactly our mission is and where exactly we're going, we absolutely need to communicate that out. And I'm hopeful to do it in part through the website, but I do believe that that message has to get out in a uniform way. So that, because we don't want misunderstanding or confusion about what our mission exactly is. Our committee, they've been wonderful. We have homework assignments and everyone has been doing them. And this week or this month, in case anyone wants to check it out and our viewers at home, that we're viewing, it's a TED Talk by Chimananda Adichie, and it's on the danger of a single story. And so it's that TED Talk by Adichie is focused on why it's important to not, the danger of a single story essentially is that it's one person's point of view or one particular group's point of view. And without understanding multiple points of view or perspectives, the danger is it leads to stereotype and misunderstanding. So that is meant to help us drive creating our mission and vision, because we don't want the mission and vision to reflect one story. So
Send us the link to it.
sure, absolutely, be happy to.
Actually, maybe could you send the social identity wheel and that little packet that we had? Maybe that would be nice for people to
Yep.
familiarize themselves with too. Because that was very useful for a lot of people. Like, I mean, I kind of know about that stuff, but it was a really great conversation starter too.
I'd be happy to put a packet together I'll put it on the board website for you, or the packets, for sure.
One thing with the website, which I think is a great idea, and I'm sure you've thought about a lot of the elements of it. Just what would be nice is if there's an area for either contact or feedback, or because I think, beyond the committee, the community as a whole, or even myself may have ideas or just their story that they may want to share or the perspective. The only other question that I want to throw out there is, I've heard this concept of DEI being idea. And I'm just wondering with the A being representing access, and that's something I'm wondering if anyone else has maybe heard of, or being that the committee's in an early stage, is something that might be worth thinking about. It's an acronym, but in words, but they mean a lot. So it's just wondering if, DEI is kind of everything, we hear that all the time, but are there other ways to look at it beyond?
Yeah, I have seen some, whether it's districts or organizations or what have you, they've moved beyond just the DEI acronym to other acronyms. And one of them is IDEA, and it does incorporate the term access. And some would argue that equity, by definition, includes access. But whatever it works to get our community to know and understand and appreciate the value of it, it might be something the committee would consider.
I just want to say one thing, and I know but I want to thank the board for your support with the goal, not only with the goal, but clearly as this work progresses, there's more of it and there's a lot to do. And so your support of, changing Joanne's role and title, and then offering her support in human resources is critical to us reaching that goal of equity and inclusion for everybody at Sweet Home. So thank you for your support on that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll go quick, I promise. I just wanted to update the board quickly on the March 10th incident. It was just, there are certain things that are out of our control, but what's in our control is the way we handle them. And first and foremost, the Amherst Police Department, I just want to say a big thank you to them for their immediate communication and constant communication throughout that incident in Traverse Circle. It did not involve any of our buildings or our students, but it did impact our buses as we were asked to stay out of that area for a certain amount of time. They called Mrs. Bayless, they called me, and we're just in constant contact on where to go and what to do. And then, so we set up kind of a command post in my office and talked to all the buildings that would be impacted, talked to our transportation department as well. Then at a certain point, Joanne, the APD said that our buses can go in there, but Joanne went to the scene first. Don and I stayed back so we could communicate with the buildings and transportation and parents on what was happening in the area. Joanne went to the scene, cleared it, and then Don and I joined her at the scene to make sure all of our students got home that lived in that area. But like I said, you can't control certain things, but you can control how you respond, and couldn't be more proud of our partnership with APD and everybody that was involved back in district to make sure our students got home safely that day. We are in the middle, just an update on our Glendale principal search. Our survey went out today to the community, parents and community members regarding their input on the qualities they would like to see in the next principal. That position closes on, that opening closes on March 28th. Then we'll be forming our committees and working through the final interview process. And we hope to have a recommendation to the board in May for that position.
Just a quick question. I'm sorry. Quick. Do we normally do the survey, the community surveys for, I know we did one for our superintendent search. Is this the first time we're doing one for principal search, or is this our normal practice?
Yeah, we've done principal, we've done the surveys for, at least for Maple Mere in the middle school.
Just to get two people who are interested to be on our
Oh,
community.
and that we did one at the high school as well, several years ago.
Super cool. That a lot.
I just want to bring this to the board's attention. We met today as a group, Joanne, Don, Mr. Perry, and myself, regarding the June 1st Regents exam in U.S. history. This is proving to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare because it's on June 1st. There will be approximately 250 students at Sweet Home taking this exam. It's a mandatory exam. And so typically the June 1st or the first week of June exam has been something that is a pilot or something along the lines where you can opt in or out of that exam. Well, this one is required, and they kept it on June 1st. Which we have to debate whether or not classes will take place that day, like the rest of the Regents exam. So we're looking at a situation where if classes do not take place, we would have professional development at the high school for any teachers not involved in the delivery of the exam. We're also looking at scenarios where classes would take place, but you can imagine that's quite a logistical nightmare with the number of classrooms that are needed, or do we do it in the gym, and then do we have desks available? And then, if we're pulling all of our social studies teachers out, what are their other classes for the other grades? What's going to happen with them? So this poses to be kind of a little bit of a planning process that we're going through, and just wanted to make the board aware that we are in the planning stages. And then we'll let you know what our recommendation would be. But if you had any input on that, no matter which way we go, that is a day. That day does count. If we do not have classes, that day does count as a student day. So we're not impacted there at all as well. So just on your radar. And then I know I mentioned this in my memo, but the Willow Ridge Parkview project is in full swing. I met with North Tonawanda Mayor, and they're doing they did it tonight, a community forum online to get input on what the community would like to see in the Willow Ridge Parkview areas. Our building condition survey is completed. We had to submit it to the state by the March 1st deadline. Sean Wright will be here at the May study session to present the building condition survey to the board. Basis for our next capital project as well, which I know we're in the middle of our big one right now, but the next one will be coming. And then we have an abundance of test kits, and so I thought I would get through a meeting without talking about COVID, but this is good. This is a good thing. Our numbers are very low this week as well, and they've been only going down, but we still have an abundance of test kits, and we would like to administer one. We can do some this week to every student and faculty member, and we also plan on having enough for the April break as well.
Expiration dates?
That's part of the reason why we want to start getting rid of some. We're monitoring those expiration dates. Although the state did come out and give it a 2-month extension, I think that was yesterday. I saw a letter that came out that there is a 2-month extension on the box. So we'll communicate as
Can
well.
they just like make?
They did, yes.
It's fine.
Why not a year?
Yeah.
Do that with milk in our
Yeah, I
house.
was just I was thinking the
All right,
exact-
and that's all I have, but if anybody has any questions, of course, I'd entertain them. Sorry.
Mr. Genestri, if I might, just one thing that I did forget in the budget presentation, there is legislation afoot in both houses
Yep.
to increase the threshold of the capital outlay project from $100,000 to $250,000. So that would obviously impact our budget one way or other. But hopefully come April 1st, the deadline for the state budget, we'll get more clarification on that.
Could we find out the bill number from Bill Track 50 so we could send our postcards to support
I'm
it?
sure we can. Well, that's part of their one-house budget.
It's, yeah,
Yeah, I was
it's in
gonna
their
say,
one house
I'm
budget.
sure he's reading the same messages I've been reading.
Cool.
And quickly, I hope, I know I saw a lot of board members at the musical outstanding this weekend. They did such a great job putting it together. I mean, what a show. The acting, the singing, the costumes, I mean, and the sets were awesome. So yeah, great job to everybody and the hundreds of people that were involved in the musical. It was phenomenal and great to see a crowd. And just quickly want to thank Lisa Sobolski. This is her last board meeting, and she's in her last meeting at Sweet Home. She's got a great opportunity that she's pursuing outside of the district. And the transition to clerk was seamless. I know she worked a lot with Sherry. And then want to welcome Karen, who is taking over as our assistant clerk, and wish her a happy birthday as well. So
And does that conclude?
that's fine, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's move on. Upcoming events, you can read those yourself. And this takes us to new business. Could I have a motion for consent agenda for A through L?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let's go through these. A is rules for use of optical scan voting machines. Stop as I go along if you have any questions. B is the proposed amendment to the district's 2017 Capital Improvement Reserve Fund. C is the annual public hearing and district vote policy 1610. D is our special education placements, all 191 pages this month. That was a big one this month. D, special education. E is monthly financial reports. F is our disposal of obsolete property. G is our revised policy second reading of 1410. H is our first reading of policy 1410. I is Erie One BOCES Board of Education nominees. Do we have to officially nominate?
We don't have to.
you know, just so it's on.
We should.
We should, I thought we should. So how do we go about doing that?
If anybody on the board
Make a
wants to make a
motion,
motion
make
for
a
a
motion.
nomination, yeah. We'll get it in the
Do we
record.
have the names?
They're in,
You make that nomination.
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, I'll, trying to remember the names, I'm
I
sorry.
know, I'd have to go back.
Right, that's why I was like,
Yeah, I'd like to nominate, to suggest that we nominate Andrew Loeb, Mary Bussey, Mark Mecca.
I second,
I'll second.
you second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Scott. Next are appointments.
Trying to remember his first name.
We're actually appointing Karen tonight. Yay.
Yes.
K is our seeker capital outlay project. And finally, L is acceptance of a donation of 330 backpacks and supplies. And who are we getting that from? The Ascendant Charitable Foundation?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions or comments? So all in favor of that consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that carries. Next, we'll briefly talk about our informational items. Go ahead. Start with you.
All right, so as I said last week, I have an abundance of legislative meetings
Oh, no.
coming up. We have Assemblyman Conrad tomorrow. Again, we're talking about eatable salary cap for BOCES, APPR, a lot of other issues that are on NICET's
Right on.
rigor, yes. PTA meeting for Glendale last week. Lots of spring events coming up, fun run, flower sale, movie night at the drive-in. So they're planning a lot of things for the end of the year. And as Mr. Genestri said, my family had the pleasure to attend Anything Goes on Saturday night, and it was a great performance.
Thank you, Peter. All right, Scott.
Sorry to say, I missed the high school PTSA meeting because I finally was able to get the family together for dinner, and I always tell everybody
More
family first.
important, more
Yeah.
important.
And I know I said I wouldn't talk much, but we actually got from NISBA today, the basic information about both the Senate and Assembly one-house budgets. As Mr. Feldman mentioned a little bit ago, the aid for capital outlays was increased on both of them from 100 to 250,000. But there were several of the items were actually things we talked about earlier as our legislative team for Erie County Association of School Boards doing the same type of meetings that you guys are doing now. And several of the things came through. They put money back into the budget. It's different from one house to the other per prior year aid claims. They did both propose to increase the BOCES aidable salary cap from 30,000 to 60,000, which is a number we suggested. I think it was a number you guys were suggesting too, right? Let's see, they're both talking about the building aid formula, trying to look at, there's a bunch of different things in here. Basically what it came down to was there were several items that we asked for. They didn't expand on state aid, but there were several items we asked for that are all coming through from both houses. So it's just a question of whether the governor will sign them. So it was nice to see that. It was probably one of the easier years for lobbying. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Haley.
I attended the Health and Wellness Committee, where we talk about the attendance policy. There's I think it's a recommendation from the state to change the threshold for chronic absenteeism from 10% to 5%. And we were discussing the logistics of what that would mean. How would that work? Is that something that we feel like we can recommend, and we just need to have more discussion on it? And then I was at the DEI committee meeting, which we heard all about. It was wonderful. I also was not able to attend the high school PTSA meeting or the musical because I was driving to Baltimore. Next year, though.
Thank you, Kaylee. Josh.
Sure, just a
Welcome
couple.
back, by the way.
Thank you. Just a couple, thank you. A couple of very quick things. I was at the Maple PTSA meeting. Just one item of interest from that. They had before February break, they had their virtual dance. And Mr. Ryan noted that there was 25 teachers in attendance. That was the Friday before break, 2 of whom had just lost a close family relative, but still found it to be a priority to be there on the Friday that most teachers are burning rubber in the parking lot to get out of there. They had 25 teachers on that dance. So it's pretty impressive. The dedication is really remarkable. There was interest in the after-school program, the interviews for the contractors for that. I don't know if that was talked about last week. Was that has that contract been awarded?
It's not. We've narrowed down to one vendor. They are going to tour our buildings on Friday to make certain that they can accommodate our needs. And then we would intend at that point in time to make a recommendation to Mr. Genestri and then ultimately to the board in April.
And then the last thing, I provided an update, and one of the things I updated on was, of course, is the capital improvement project. So Maplemere, with their increase in enrollment, 26%, there was a lot of parent interest in, well, what are we doing with the next capital improvement project for Maplemere? Obviously, there was no answer, but just to let you know that everybody's very excited about what might be in
More,
that next capital improvement
Ryan
project.
says, learning cottages. We like to
That's
learn-
it. He brought that one up, learning cottages. That was pretty good, but that's, and then the other, I attended, just because I had a personal interest in it, I attended the all-county concert on Saturday. It was really cool. I was not able to see the High School Musical, though.
Thank you. Brian?
I'll keep it brief. I participated and attended the policy committee meeting at the beginning of the month. And then also was able to attend the High School Musical, which was excellent.
Thank you. All right, Amy?
I attended the High School Musical and the girls' basketball game, but I can't remember if I talked about that last week. Kudos to them.
So they were amazing. So
They're so good. Such a good group of kids. The musical was amazing. It always boggles my mind how they can get up there and do all of that. But I missed the middle school PTSA meeting last week. Still waiting for an update. Other than that,
Thank you. I too attended the musical, and as Josh mentioned, there were a lot of teachers at that musical. So, and I saw your kids enjoyed it. They were rocking out to it. Our health and safety meeting was postponed, so to be determined. I just wanted to call out a student, Lily Fisher. Not only was she in the musical, but she had a nice editorial in the Buffalo News that a lot of people commented on. So if you get a chance, go back and look at it. Very good article. And Heritage Heights PTA was yesterday, and as all of you have mentioned, they are, moving forward with lots of events for the spring and financially doing pretty well. And that's it. That takes us to our second open session. Any takers? So I'm not going to read through that. Next is personnel. Could I have a consent agenda for 1, teaching and administrative, and 2, service?
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And lastly, could I have a motion to adjourn? We will not need to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.